Oh, sorry. First, you may perhaps give me your name, your position, and the school.
All right. Name's Edmund Hicks. I work at Darong International Bilingual School in Kaohsiung, Taiwan. Last year I taught grade 2, and this year I'll be teaching grade 3 in their CIP program. And I'm basically an English homeroom teacher. So, and I also, in addition to that, I also teach some bilingual classes as well, which is mostly math, science, and English.
All right. So first, I'll ask you a few questions about the curriculum. So, how does the curriculum prepare students to be globally competitive? How are the 21st century skills taught?
I would say that as far as the curriculum goes, and keep them globally competitive, a big one is when the students reach grade 3, they're all required to have their own tablets so that they can do computer work on their own. And they learn how to do all of the email addresses and Google searches and things like that, and little assignments online like Google Class. Like Google Suite is actually a big thing that the school uses for all the students and parents. So I think in that case, it's like information retrieval online is what the kids have to learn about, which is definitely in this day and age an important skill that they'll have to have.
How do you plan to incorporate a curriculum that highlights viewpoints and minority voices? I'm guessing this would be a bit hard now that I'm guessing most of your students are all Taiwanese, yeah?
Yeah, I think the way that you incorporate incorporate a curriculum that highlights different viewpoints and minority voices. It's predominantly Taiwanese students. There are maybe a few students from, say, Hong Kong or Korea, but that's a very small amount, and it's still the same kind of. They'll still, for the most part, speak all the same language. There might be a few kids that are the children of foreign teachers as well. So there's not a whole massive amount of diversity. But let's see, what do we have to do to incorporate the curriculum? I'd say one of the things is examples of in the books. I know this happens. They use like little student avatars for some of their books, and the students' names are in some cases Indian names from country of India. So some of the characters in that case throughout the book, some are Indian. I think there's like a group of constant kids that go throughout the program. You'll see like one is an African American looking kid, one's an Indian kid, one's a white kid. There's also like a robot character as well. So I mean, they kind of diversify that way of a group of kids talking. So the kids get to see that throughout their book in their science books, especially. You see kids when they're doing that. So I think that's probably that's probably one way they can give minority voices. And there are occasionally, not frequently, but on occasion, there is like maybe a case study that involves a child or two from maybe, say, America or a different country that's not Taiwan.
Cool. What challenges have arisen during the implementation of the 21st century curriculum?
What challenge? I guess the 21st century curriculum, because they do require like some online learning for the kids. I think that's a big challenge, especially when they're little. As a lot of kids get older, they're very much so adapted to online, how to use a computer and turn it on and operate and get to YouTube and things like that. That's easy enough. I think the biggest one is getting through the language barriers for the implementation of it all. And maybe you also, like, not just the kids trying to learn the English language, sometimes you're up against the Chinese language that pops up on the computer screen. So together with the students, if something pops up, I'll ask the students, like, can anyone tell me what that says? Mr. Hicks doesn't know. So, and the kids will just like, oh, it says to do this, they'll translate for you. So that's pretty awesome. So it's kind of like you're the teacher, but you're working together with the kids trying to get through an English and Chinese hybrid sort of lesson, which is you're learning as well, right? So
what have you got there to display that? You have like a projector or a smart board, or?
That would depend on which classroom you're in. It's kind of like it's like there's old school, there's like it almost seems like there's older classrooms and newer classrooms. The younger elementary age classes, you'll see a lot of that where they do have smart screens. If they don't have a smart screen, they have like newer projection screens that you can use, which are, and it really depends on which classroom you're in. Some of the classrooms have tile floors, some of them have hardwood floors. Again, it depends on which classroom they've recently renovated. Some of the whiteboards, some of them are whiteboards, some of them are actually like green boards, not really blackboards, but green boards. But they do, it again depends on the screen. Some of these whiteboards, it's like 4 pieces. There's the middle will slide open. So I mean, you may be writing in chalk or you might be writing in marker. It depends on what classroom you get. So.
All right, let's move on to instruction. So what advice would you have for teachers to implement 21st century skills in the classroom?
I think they do have computer labs. So I think when you think about 21st century skills in general, as you get up to the older level grades, like this year, for example, with us teaching grade 3, the children are going to be learning how to use their tablets in class. So I think you're going to have to figure out a system of understanding what parental controls are, just to, for the child's safety of not going down or getting into websites that are not suitable for young learners. So you're going to have to keep an eye out for that. And I think just understanding that, like, even though there are computers in the classroom for the homeroom teachers, some of the computers might be, the program might be Chinese based. So when Windows pop up or something that you're using, it could be a Chinese question it's asking you, not an English question. There is that kind of issue that does come up sometimes. That can be kind of frustrating. So it's probably a little bit in your favor to, I don't know, try to be open to like what a Chinese phrase is in the computer. Makes it working much easier. And what else would there be for implementing it? I think in a way it's also like, because of smart boards, some of them, the children can actually, it's within reach. Children can come up and try to use it themselves. So there could be like a learning curve there with letting the kids do it. Some of the kids will be very good. Some of them won't know what's going on. So there is a learning curve there as well. Trying to let them try to use a smart board if you're using any activities that are like that.
All right. How do you align 21st century skills in presenting work? I guess you already went over that. It's kind of Google Suite, yeah? You use that quite a bit for presenting. You use Google Sites and...
Yeah, they use Google Slides, or they'll use Google Slides. Like some kids will still do PowerPoint presentations. The older classes will do this, like when you get up to like grade 4, 5, and 6, the older elementary and the junior high kids, they'll come up with their own, they just follow templates and they can do little presentations in the class like that.
How do you implement collaboration work in the classroom?
I guess I know it seems to be kind of an obvious answer, but seating arrangements. Taiwanese typically go by rows, which I would think is kind of outdated. And I'm more of a small group, almost like Jigsaw or even Tetris looking styles, where you have like small groups of 3 or 4 kids in the classroom. I think that's a great way. It puts them into smaller groups where they can actually work together. And in each group, you typically have like what you would call an above readiness student, who can be like the leader of the group, a below readiness student who would normally need more help, and then like say a readiness or a middle of the pack kind of student. And I find that works out well for collaborating with the kids, so that it really encourages peer teaching and peer learning, and it leaves you open to facilitating more, and not so much 25 on 1 kids. Like say 4 or 5 5 or 6 groups, and then you can just facilitate the groups. It's much easier that way. Far more enjoyable too.
Oh, for sure. All right, better move on to resources, kind of running down on the time. So you're talking a bit about what resources are available to you that aid you, and some that hinder you in your teaching experience.
Let's see, resources that are available. Again, smart, like technology wise, you get smart boards, projection screens, or a computer in the classroom. So you have that. But at the same time, what can hinder you is if depending on the classroom, it might be a Chinese-based programming system. So that's going to slow you down if you don't know you might need someone to help you translate what that is when something comes up and you're trying to work through the computer system. That can be frustrating or slow you down. But some of them are also English, so it's actually pretty good. So that's a fantastic aid to have. And also there's, again, the tablets for the older kids. I think those would be some heavy resources. And then again, there is a budget. So resources in the sense of the school will pay for your markers, that kind of stuff. They give you a school budget so that you can make sure your classroom's equipped for that as well.
What's the monthly budget on that?
It's more of a semesterly budget.
All right. What are we playing with?
Last year it was 800 NT a semester.
All right.
Which surprisingly can get you a lot of little things that you need. You know, when you think you want to make a list of it, and you know, marker ink and things like that. I found actually I still have some leftover stuff, so it doesn't sound like a lot, and it isn't a lot, but you can still, Taiwan's pretty cheap actually, so that $800 goes farther than you would think it would. I found it did a little bit farther.
I'm already planning my trip to Mexico.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to international mindedness. So 21st skills used to promote better functioning international systems, or do we use information from different countries to benefit our own student, country, and societies? Basically, does nationalism interfere with the international taught in the IB?
I say, let's see, our 20th century skills, that's a big question. Are 21st century skills used to promote better functioning international systems, or do we use information from different countries? In information retrieval, I guess, I mean, 20th century, these 21st century skills are learned from some country. Someone has learned it and then shared it with the world, right? So they all kind of come from there. One of the things that came up was, I think information retrieval is still, as long as the kids know how to do that. I mean, they don't have to know everything. As long as they understand how to use information retrieval, say looking up something through Google, for example, then I think that's a huge benefit for the students. What do they do in, let's see here, do we use information from different countries or to benefit your student? Nationalism does interfere in the sense of, that's a good, there's still cultural drawbacks. You know, with globalization, there are definitely still drawbacks when you run into cultures. I think that's something I've experienced, where even globalization may show you a better way. Some cultures are still kind of stuck in their own way. And when you present something that might be saying, hey, I have a better way, you're also inadvertently saying, hey, your old way is the wrong way. And people take offense to that. And so, I mean, there's definitely like you got to be careful on how you use that.
Yeah.
I think IB, if it's anything like what we're going through in the globalization program, that's definitely something that's a clear conflict for us here in Taiwan, is the Taiwanese culture versus globalization. You know, that's definitely, that's tough to do for sure.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we've got about 2 minutes left, so we'll go on to the PD. So what sort of professional development courses does the school offer? When is it carried out? How often do you think is valuable?
There's nothing official like in, say, high-level international schools that send you to other countries. They don't do that. But I know of other schools that do that. Our school, they have smaller demos for new teachers. I had to do one last year, and so do a few other new teachers. You'll probably most likely be doing one this year at some point, either first semester or second semester, where you'll be teaching a class, just one period, and there'll be, say, half a dozen or a dozen teachers that'll sit in the back while you're doing it, and they'll be taking notes. And it's kind of like, that's more of a professional development in the sense that you're just kind of learning from each other. You know, seeing if they're doing something that you're like, oh yeah, I do that, or hey, that's actually a good idea. I should, revisit that because I haven't done that sort of strategy in a long time. Whether it's like seating arrangement, or maybe a fun activity, or a certain way of reviewing a lesson or delivering a lesson or something like that.
Is it valuable?
Sometimes it's, sometimes it's valuable. You do learn it. You do learn a new trick, or you get refreshed with a trick that you've forgotten about, because there are so many different ways to teach a class or how to function. And in some cases, it may not be valuable because at that time you're not teaching that level. Like you could be a grade 2 teacher, but you're sitting in on a grade 6 class. So it may or may not be helpful because you got to figure out the physical mechanics of the age of the student. Like, can they actually do that by themselves? It depends on that nature. So sometimes yes, sometimes no.
All right, we're going to wrap it up. We've got about 30 seconds left. So I'll say thanks very much. And I guess I'll see you next week, huh?
Yeah, for sure, man. We'll see you.
All right,
Good
thanks.
luck.
Again. Cheers.
All right.
Thanks very much, man.
Bye.
Bye. All right, first it was great to get some insight into the school I'll be joining. I found out that Ed had also done the Moorland program last year, and it also led to him getting this position in an international school. We spoke for about 20 minutes before the actual interview process, and he gave me a lot of information on how the school is run and the day-to-day activities and procedures, which for me was it was quite invaluable to hear that. You know, you get a bit nervous about a new job, so that calmed my fears a little bit. The school uses a lot more tech than I'm used to. Any tech would be more than I'm used to, actually. And Google Suite seems to be the go-to app. I'm already familiar with Google Docs, Google Slides, and Google Sites from the various activities we do here at Moorland. So I know how useful they are in helping to teach 21st century skills, cooperating and collaborating on projects. So that'd be great for the kids and the students too. It was great to hear that all the students have their own devices in the classroom. So now I'm eager to get in some Kahoots and some Quizzy and maybe even a bit of Word Wall, incorporate some games in there, you know. Google Classroom is also used, so it's good to know that I won't have to be writing the same messages in 20 or 30 communication books. The school also uses Class Dojo, both for classroom management and to connect with parents. Again, I love this. I think it's a huge step forward and will make my life a little less complicated, and at the same time it help motivate the kids. I wasn't surprised by the lack of diversity. Taiwan is a very closed country, and I'm used to teaching classes that consist of 100% Taiwanese pupils. Ed mentioned that some of the curriculum tries to incorporate people of different races and cultures, and I also know that the school makes an effort to celebrate Western holidays such as Christmas and Halloween. Hopefully I'll find ways to incorporate more diversity into the lessons. Though the school mostly consists of Taiwanese students, it's still one of the few international schools in Kaohsiung that actually has an IB curriculum. The school itself is quite expensive, but it's still regarded as a second-tier international school here. The school offers a 50% discount for teachers' kids, so there's something I'll have to think about over next year. With regards to PD opportunities for personal development, the school sounded quite limited actually, and similar to what I've experienced at other schools, which were just teacher observations. You know, they are what they are. Hopefully I'll continue to work on my own PD. I recently just passed the Google Educator certification, which actually helped me in getting this position. And I'll certainly keep trying adding things that will both improve me as a teacher and hopefully as a person. All right, thanks very much, guys. See you later.